it's the end of the quarter. If you sign up by Monday, I'll give you like a 5% discount. And it's like, I'm not ready to buy. So you pushing me into your little bucket.
In this episode, we break down what actually causes deals to stall and the conversation mistakes that happen long before proposal stage.
When you listen more, prospects, they reveal everything. The trust amplifies, budgets and the urgency. It surfaces naturally rather than trying to pressure that.
Closing is a commitment. It's not convincing in two ways. One, you're not pushing them just for the sale.
If you want stronger discovery, better qualification, and more consistent closing conversations, this episode is for you.
Dave, welcome to episode 4. First of all, another episode without Louis. A bit of peace and quiet.
I can get used to this. I'm actually going to be checking the stats, and hopefully the stats are better without him than with him, and then I can put that one to bed. So please share with your colleagues and friends.
Yeah, we'll make sure episode 4 ramps up. So this is about the conversation framework that helps close deals. I see like most sales that, or at least, from what I have seen in the past, professional services, etc., that there's a lot of excuse around most deals don't close because of price. And I actually think that that's a bit of a crock. I'd love to break down with you like what you think some of the biggest mistakes are in that sales process that end up leading to lost deals.
Yeah, I love talking from experience because I see this a lot as well. I've been, victim of, and this is after reviewing a lot of demo calls of those that we coach, talking too much, right, and not listening to the prospect on the call. Another one is pitching too early. Now, this is hard, right? And what I mean by hard is that you might hear something from the person you're speaking to, and you go, we can so help you here. I can solve all your problems. I'm your best thing since sliced bread. And you get so excited that you start to pitch too early without really listening to them and understanding what it is. And then you try to prove your value. So whether it's a service or product, you might overshare, you might show too much because you think you can solve everything and beyond. When really, what we've seen the best sort of, calls happen is when you really truly listen, you hear the one or two key things that they need to solve, and you showcase that, whether it's, via your services or your product. Say you're doing a product demo, you could be just showcase those two key things that they need to solve, and then just lightly skim over everything else and say, and we've got everything else in here, but these are the two key things that, from what I heard, and you clarify that with them, and then you showcase that. Then let them direct the demo rather than be just a vomit of you talking and talking. And then you feel like you need to have a gallon of water afterwards because, you haven't let them speak. It's one of those things that, I'm probably doing it right now, right? I'm talking too much and going through because I feel like I can answer everything here. But what do you think, Regs, on this?
I think I do that too sometimes. I'll start explaining and I get really excited. Then I realize, I haven't actually taken a breath yet. Look, I think that with anything like this, 3 fundamental stages, right? You have to break it down into those stages. So we've spoken about ICP. We've spoken about the message outreach so far. This part here, breaking down each of your conversations into 3 buckets, and they occur at different times. So you've got discovery for starters. You need to understand their problem, qualification, and then close. So if you break it down into those buckets, I think that it helps slow down that process. And, it's not about extending the average deals or days to close. When we talk about slowing it down, it's just gaining that understanding. So if we were to break down, say, discovery, like in a bit more detail there, Dave, what would be the things that you'd focus on in that stage?
I think listening. So having a more listening to talking ratio, say 60-40, I'm listening to you, 40% I'm talking, understanding the cues. I think being on video is a big thing too. You might be on a video call and someone might have their video off, right? It's hard to gauge people by that. And it's a little bit about reading people because you want to see if someone gets excited when they talk about something or if they put their hand on their face, if they're explaining a pain. If the video's off, you can't really see. So you're treating everything as equal when it's not. So that's a big key that I would try and say, hey, it'd be great to see you and, get on camera. Can feel a little bit awkward trying to do that, but I've had it work well on me, on others when, the other person's on video, and there's various different reasons as to why, but use your best foot forward and try and be on video so you can gauge that. I guess one of the other things as well would be having a great set of questions, right? And this is not like a list that you need to interrogate someone, but having open-ended questions where the person you're speaking to, it leaves them, explaining more rather than yes and no close-ended question. Having something that, explain what your day looks like, when you're trying to solve this problem, and they go through and you're learning more rather than asking them, do you do this or do you do that? So I think better questioning, listening more than talking, and where you can, having that visual, whether you're face-to-face, obviously best, but if you're on a video call, having the video camera actually switched on is a key part that's not really spoken about these days.
I think they're all really, really good things. One of the things that you mentioned there is around the questions. Like, I feel as well we could do a full podcast on this, because I have realized the importance of those powerful questions. A few that really come to mind off the top of my head. Future-based questions, like where do they want to go? So then the end goal, for example. What's happening in the current state? So where are those pain points now? The ones that I love that I never used to use, but now I'm just absolutely hooked on, is asking around how they've conducted processes like this in the past. The reason being is because if they've bought your product before or something like it, or, they've bought SaaS before, one of your past-based questions could be like, out of interest, if you've done this in the past, can you walk me through what that process looks like? Because ultimately, they're going to be making the decision in the same way, which then kind of leads us into that next step around qualification, right? You know what they need by answering that on the discovery, what you can align to your qualification side. But then if we were to break down, say, qualification, what should be under that bucket, that next step?
It's a great one. And a lot of people avoid it because it feels like this is getting towards I feel like I'm being a little bit pushy. So obviously here you want to talk about budget. What budget do they have for something like this? This came up the other day where someone wants what we have and they're unsure of the budget, and we're trying to get to, okay, so what's your budget? And we just I took the front foot and just said, this is the pricing, right? And if budget is an issue, let us know and we can work around that because we want to work with you.
Yeah.
And then that opens up the case for where they are. Because if we're light years away, then it'll be like, okay, we need to have a different discussion with them. Or if we're in the ballpark, hey, great, we get what we want, and they thought it was going to be more expensive, right? Because we've got a sort of set pricing point for us. I guess it's about having confidence at that stage too to ask those questions, because we can feel a little bit nervous at that stage there, and you can feel like you've had a good call and you sort of skim over it and you go to proposal stage, which is a massive mistake that we see a lot of people do.
Pardon the interruption. I'm Luigi, one of the co-hosts here at Revenue Leaders. You'll notice we don't run sponsors or ads on Revenue Leaders.
This show is free. Our goal is to help you grow revenue and build your sales system that you can rely on. We do have a favour to ask though.
If this episode gives you one clear idea that you can use, do these two things. First, share it with one person, a founder, a revenue leader, or a rep who wants to grow their business. Just one. That's how the show grows.
Second, grab free access to our vault over at coachpilot.com/vault. Inside, you'll get the frameworks, templates, and short courses we use with clients to help them scale pipeline and increase win rates.
So the deal is simple. If you get value, share the episode with one person and go to coachpilot.com/vault to get the tools to put this into action. All right. Let's get back to it.
I'd love to learn, from your experience, Regan, because, you have quite a large team, is, what have you seen sort of work well and then on the flip side, not?
It's funny, like you called me Regan, which like a lot of time, if someone calls me Regan, I feel like I'm getting in trouble. Yeah, that budget piece is interesting, right? Because, even on the call that we had, say yesterday as a discovery call, there was an opportunity for us, if we really wanted to just jump straight into proposal and to be able to pitch. But then how you were able to say, look, this is like typically this is where we start pricing from. But then we were able to have a conversation in terms of like, we advise on your playbook, we train your team, and then we give you software. So really it ultimately depends on what package you need and where you are as a business. And I think that like for me, I almost saw like their shoulders relax and be like, hold on, these guys, they want to work with us. So I think that Qualification should be working together. It's not a, how I kind of like to see this is like, it's not a push. You're not pushing something at them. You're pulling. Like you're actually trying to gain something out of them to understand where they're at, to be able to provide something in return. So the more you kind of chase, I think for me, it just doesn't work. Like if a seller kept pushing to me, I kind of back away. Whereas if someone is like, this is what you should do in this stage, I don't want to rush to proposal. I actually want to know how to solve it. I think that those things really matter. And what we've also seen, and from say Gong, for example, they've actually been able to track that when sales reps actually start talking about budget and pricing up front and earlier in the process, they're more likely to win the opportunities. So when you're actually giving that ballpark, it helps both parties. That sets a level of expectation, knows how to move forward before we even go to that proposal stage. And then I think it's about timing. I realized this the other day when a seller tried to push a product on me and said, it's the end of the quarter. Like if you sign up by Monday, and it was like a call on a Friday, if you sign up by Monday, I'll give you like a 5% discount. And it's like, well, I'm not ready to buy. So you pushing me into your little bucket, I didn't want to buy off of them. And in fact, you and I went to a different vendor after that experience as well. So then when we chose the other vendor, it was because of a few different things about how they approached our listening. And I guess this leads me to my next question for you, like how important is listening within that process?
I think it's critical. When you listen more, prospects, they reveal everything. The trust amplifies, which now, you become the trusted advisor. Budgets and the urgency, it surfaces naturally rather than trying to pressure that. Like I mentioned with that previous provider, as soon as someone says it's the end of the quarter and instantly our radar goes up. It's like, well, now you don't give a shit about me. It's just about closing this deal, right? And that's what you're focused on. So just stop saying that shit. There's less pressure that comes, from your side, and the seller the buyer feels that. They feel that there's no pressure on them, that they're empowered to make the decision, right? And that in turn builds more trust with you as a provider. Like we actually used and it wasn't any sort of psychology stuff that we did, but we actually said to a prospect, hey, we're probably not the right time for you guys to work with us right now. Maybe come back to us in 6 months' time once we've got that bit of feature that you mentioned. And then the reverse happened. One of the people on the call said, hey, okay, no, but if we do want to work with you now, can we do X and can we do Y? And then instantly we're like, bang, there's our champion, and they want to work with us sooner. Okay, cool. So let's work with you with that. That's great. And it wasn't a tactic. It was more of a, hey, we don't want to sell something to you, then have you realize, we sold you not something that's there right now, but it's there in 6 months' time, and then lose you, which just happened to me, right? I'm going to riff off this for a second because, I was sold something, and it was let's call it a billing platform. I'm not going to name names. It was a billing platform, looked great, looked like it was going to solve everything. The salesperson was really good, right? Answered all my questions, did everything, had a great sort of conversation. He listened well. But what happened was the aftermarket, right? And this is the thing when it comes, down to, even if you have an annual subscription or month by month sort of thing, what has happened since I've bought the product is the service and the offering has just declined dramatically. And now to the point where, I'm just going to cancel it and revert back to what we're doing before. Because if I'm going to pay $1,000 a month for this service and product, it needs to work. And when you say you're going to deliver something, deliver it. I shouldn't have to be the one that follows up for you to deliver what you said you're going to do. So that aftermarket service is the customer service side of things. People are losing touch with that. And that can be one of your powers as well, is that it's not just about, this whole mini series is about client acquisition, how to win more customers. But the power that you can have within your business is that aftermarket service and retaining customers.
If we were to summarize what you just said there at the end, though, like closing is a commitment. It's not convincing in two ways. One, you're not pushing them just for the sale, but once you close an opportunity, that's a commitment that you're going to follow through on that. And I think that that's something that a lot of businesses get wrong, is that once you win it, awesome, that's great. It's money in your pocket, it's money in the business's pocket, the business is growing, but you still have to deliver on that service and make sure that that experience of like a really good sales process carries through all the way to customer success, right?
Yeah, and I think before we wrap up, just to tail onto that, you've won the customer, that is the perfect time to turn one customer into three, right? By having a great aftermarket service, right? By ensuring that onboarding, implementing the service, the product, whatever it is just as good as the buying process. Because if you do, then that one customer can introduce you to 3, 4, 5 customers, right? Now, if you have the opposite effect and someone, asks me about this billing provider because, the world is very small and the circles are small, I'm going to have a negative response to it, which, could turn customers away and they'll never know. So I think, great point, Regan.
I think in that, I think it's a wonderful way to like finish the conversation here, Dave. So fantastic. We found out about the 3 stages: discovery, qualification, and close. I think for episode 5, what we really need to focus on here is about how not every conversation should actually be a prospect. So keep listening in. I hope you're enjoying it, and we'll see you soon.